You're now listening to Voices of Lynn. My name is Justice, and I'll be your host for this episode of Table Talks. For this series, I'll be speaking with local residents, business owners, elected officials, students, as well as current and former employees of businesses here in Lynn to discuss how the COVID-19 pandemic has had an effect on them either personally or professionally, and what are some of the things that they're doing to get through it. I do want to make it clear that the opinions of our guests are theirs alone and do not reflect the opinions of our host or Voices of Lynn podcast. All right, I have C. Wells on the line. He's a rap artist from Lynn, making some waves, not only in the hip-hop community, but also in the fine arts community. He's recently performed at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston for a Basquiat exhibit. So first, I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with me on this podcast.
No problem.
And also wanted to get right into these questions. The first one, how are you doing with this quarantine?
Good. Just trying to readjust to how I was handling things before this. So it's like it kind of gives you more time to lock in and readjust and really think about what's going on. So I can't say it's too bad. I mean, people getting sick's not a good thing, but we'll get through it.
Right on, right on. When did you first hear about the seriousness of it, or hear about it at all, about the spread of COVID-19, and what was going through your mind after you first heard about it?
So I want to say when we got told we were getting a Christmas gift, early Christmas gift, I think it was. Not to misquote it.
Wow.
But yeah, I was kind of aware of what we were supposed to get by around then, and then come to find out it's coronavirus. So the serious of it, probably want to say about end of January, I want to say, and then where I really felt it was probably around about 2-3 weeks ago since it started getting. So I was noticing it was getting closer to us.
Wow. Okay. What are your thoughts on it now? Has your perspective changed on it?
Yes, my perspective changed on it a lot. Originally, I was like, "Oh, we're gonna get through this. This is something that we haven't seen before. Maybe this is fake." And when you're seeing that it's actually the real deal.
A lot of people did think it was fake or not as serious at first. So
pretty much originally I'm not paying no mind to it, thinking it's fake. As we're getting deeper into it and I'm finding this out as an actual thing, I'm getting more curious and reading these articles that are out or doing my own research, trying to gain more knowledge on it itself as opposed to hanging on to hearsay.
Right on. Okay. I think a lot of people's perspective has changed about this. Early on, if you're not a medical expert or you're not a scientist, I think people generally just assume this is just something that's going to come and go quickly. So I just wanted to ask that because I noticed in a short period of time, the perspectives are shifting pretty quickly with people. So, and some are still not taking it serious.
It kind of forces you to realize how many people you actually know that work in that field. So then when you have a conversation with friends and the last 3 people you talk to in one day all worked at a hospital, and they're telling you that it's not being told to us how actual serious this is. That's another thing that makes you really hone in. You're like, oh, this is starting to hit home.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's the common thread I've been hearing from people is that this is what's made it hit home. I think for everybody that's aware that it's serious. I think some people are still in disbelief. They maybe haven't talked to someone like you said that's in it, either on the front line or had an experience with it. So
it's like thinking about war almost. You're like, oh yeah, it's just war, whatever. Until you know somebody or speak to somebody that's actually, like you said, front line, and you're like, oh, this is a real thing. This is not just. So yeah.
100%. Yeah, it's leaving so many people speechless, and so many people confused, and I think just hearing your perspective on this, being a leader, in the community with your voice, whether it's for rap or otherwise having an influence, knowing what's going on around you, that puts you in a different echelon. You know what I'm saying? There's those that know and those that don't know, and those who know and take it serious. And and so on. But could I ask, do you know anybody personally? I know you mentioned some nurses. Is that a personal experience of yours? Like you've spoken to some friends that are frontline workers, or?
Like yeah, like so, like I like this through like conversation. Like you come across people on social media you haven't spoken to in a while, and you're catching up with them, and like, and mind you, I had like two different conversations with like two different nurses in one day. And they're both saying the same. Oh, and then my boy's sister's a nurse as well. And so when you're hearing all three of them saying the same thing and they don't even know each other, you're like, oh, this is serious.
Right. Right on. So, wow. Does anybody that you know personally, or through a friend of a friend that actually is tested positive, or it's going through treatment right now?
Oh, no.
Or who's been cured?
I don't think I know anyone personally, but it's more or less people that are dealing with people that are infected. Right.
Okay. So it's kind of like that 6 degrees of separation. It just seems like it's become narrow, maybe 2 or 3 degrees of separation now.
Yes, but it's like it doesn't feel too far.
Yep.
Or impossible to catch it.
Right. Right. And now, besides being a rapper, you having the gift of songwriting. As a songwriter, has this experience inspired any new writing?
Well, I guess it's like a double-edged sword for me, because like now, at these few months I've been pretty active. So it was like, and I was supposed to have my headline show.
Right, I know, because performing-wise, that's what I've been seeing. You've been performing a lot. I'm just curious if the writing aspect is still continuing.
Right. So like when I'm excited about putting my first headline show together, and not knowing, and even during this time not knowing the severity of the coronavirus, I'm not finding out my show's canceled until about an hour or two before the doors open.
Wow.
So like, I guess to re-answer the question earlier, I guess that was the real time I knew that it was really real. It was like, I'm in Cambridge, and usually when I've done shows at the Middle East, even if it was just a show that I was just opening up at, the streets of Cambridge are packed. When I'm pulling up to Sonya to like get ready to like set things up or discuss what we're gonna do about handling the show, I'm also noticing outside of the venue is a little dead, and that was a little unusual to me.
Right.
So like dealing with that as within actual being active and performing, it's a kind of uninspiring. But then but luckily we have streaming and all these other things where you listen to new music that's coming out and taking you to other places, and you kind of getting re-inspired. Like, okay, there is other things. And yeah, this virus thing is big, but there are other things that's going on that you could put your mind on.
Right on, right on. Yeah, that's kind of what I was wondering about that from any type of genre of music.
Yeah.
Your surroundings may inspire what comes out of the pen or the pencil, and also at the same time it could be what's going on inside you, or a combination of the two. So that's why I wanted to ask you that, because I think songwriters, singers, rappers, and entertainers, they have people's ear and attention more than the average person. Right. So I was just wondering if it's inspired any new.
That's always another thing too. So like now when things like this occur, you're like, oh, how can I play my role within what I do to make an impact in this? Like how do I discuss the way? How do I go about discussing this? Do I go on social media and discuss with the audience? Do I write a record about it? Like you kind of don't want, and then you want to like, which way is the right way? You don't want to resort to writing a song about it just because you're a rapper. It's like you kind of want to go with more of the more effective way. So it's like there's a lot of pushing and pulling when it comes to this. And now you gotta readjust, and then, and especially with being an artist, you gotta, going into a new year, you have a whole bunch of things planned.
Right.
So now when you're going in, so now when you're month 3 in, and then you're dealing with a pandemic, you don't know how long your plans to push back for.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yep. Well, I appreciate you sharing that perspective. It's definitely important. I think a lot of people need to hear that, because people are moving forward in the same lane that they've always been in, and others are realizing that Other lanes have vehicles have vacated, so now there's more space. You could not choose a different lane, but you can move in between the lanes now differently because the times call for it. So I appreciate you sharing that perspective. And another question I have related to perspective and observation in your neighborhood or surrounding neighborhoods and in the city of Lynn in general, do you think people are taking this serious or not really? I know on social media it's a mix, but about your personal observations right in front of you in your neighborhood, people hunkering down or not taking it serious?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. And I think like because of that, it could be stretched out longer. Like I was reading something and I guess China caught it in like December, and they as of recently they only got one recent case, and it took them 4 months for that. So it's like, and we're still outside. So it's that chances of we got the highest cases right now.
Yep, the U.S. I think
so I would
we're like 3 or 4, I think, in the world.
With the way that we don't take things serious, I would assume it would be double that.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's the consensus of thought right now. And another thing I want to just make a quick segue over to a little bit more stable conversation, less uncertainty, since there's been some definitive measures taken to implement some resources and some influx of cash. So have you, I know rappers and singers and songwriters generally are considered part of the gig economy or as independent contractors. So what I'm curious about is if you've either been made aware of through any organizations, or if you've found out on your own about financial resources or other resources to help artists like yourself during this time to keep you guys focused on your career path or passions at least.
I wasn't physically told, but I don't know if it was. I seen like you share it, or I seen someone share something that there was a bunch of there's a bunch of resources for this pandemic that's going on for the artists and funding and figuring out their situation. But I haven't fully looked into it, but it definitely looked interesting just hearing about it.
Okay, because I know of a few of those off the top of my head. I wouldn't be able to mention them for the podcast, but when we get off this call, I'd be happy to link you up with some of the resources that I've found and that people have shared with me. So if you could also get those around to other artists you think could take advantage of that, that could be pretty helpful.
Yeah, for sure.
Another thing I wanted to ask is, do you think, or what do you think can be done to make people take this more serious? There's been obviously a lot of different issues that people face in their own communities or within their own groups, their social groups or whatever, and people don't necessarily adjust until it's the 6 degrees of separation is getting closer, until it's right in front of their face or they're affected. So what do you think can be done to influence people to take this more serious?
So what I think was step one was realizing what our faults/weaknesses. So I think knowing that we don't take things serious was the first step. And then the fact that people keep emphasizing and when someone's asked how long do you think this will go on, my response is 9 times out of 10 the answer that's going to come out of someone's mouth. So it's the fact that if that can keep getting pushed, then I think people because even when I'm hearing someone else say it, it starts to click in my head more, right? Because I'm here just like everyone else. So when I'm hearing someone else say, "Oh yeah, we don't take things seriously if we keep going outside," well, it took 4 months for here. Which means it'll take 8 for here. So I'm like, so when you start putting things when people start putting things in perspective,
there we go.
I think that's where people will start taking it seriously.
Right on. I think perspective is really the gateway, to understanding. That's the first step. Which is
I don't try not to fault people too much because we all have our own things going on.
Right.
So in this pandemic, we're so random.
Yep.
So it's I get it, but it's we kind of don't take anything serious, and this is one of those times we gotta snap out of it fast.
Right. It's almost like we're being called to to empathize with people that either have no knowledge or have knowledge and don't care as much.
Right.
And then knowing it might take them a few more conversations to really understand.
Right, because someone like me is like, even though I know the severity of it, but getting your body to understand at the same time is kind of like it's another task within itself. So then when you're hearing somebody say, and it's even that, somebody could say something to make you take something seriously than you weren't before. So like when I'm continuously hearing somebody say, "Oh, you got to social distance," when I'm hearing words like social distance, you have to practice that, and not being around too many people or eliminate. And I think when people start realizing that they can't do the things that they used to do, or
right.
or if they want to get back to doing the things that they used to do, I think they'll probably start taking it serious.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, and the last question I wanted to ask you was, what would you like to see happen in Lynn when this pandemic goes away and the people can get back to normal socializing? Any vision, aspirations, hopes that you have that you'd like to see manifest in the city post-pandemic?
I honestly want to see that people's learned something from this. Definitely, if you feel like you weren't using your resources that you have in a certain way that are now shut off, hopefully people learn to do that. Definitely, like, interacting more, because that was something we probably take for granted, knowing that we have social media and all this technology.
Right on.
Being told you shouldn't hang out with more than 10 people at once, I'm sure some people probably do hang out with more than 10 people at once.
Right.
So it's like kind of forces you to, and then there's people that don't. So it's like it kind of makes you cherish things like that. So like definitely act as if you learned something from this. Word.
Okay. I appreciate you sharing that perspective. And any words in closing that you'd like to share with the people of Lynn, of America, of Earth, or local officials? This is basically your opportunity to share what's on your mind if you have a message to the people.
Definitely stay safe in times like this. This is a learning process for all of us. I don't think anyone would know from an experience how to handle this, and we all in this together.
Word. Well, again, C. Wells, man, I appreciate your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.